Anni Davey. I've got a wonderful story to tell you this morning from the Bible. I wonder if any of you know the name of the first book in the Bible. Let's see what it is, shall we? Shall we read it together? White letters with a blue brush. Genesis. And Genesis is about the beginnings of everything. The very first verse in the very first book says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." It doesn't tell us how he did it, just that he did it. Very exciting. Can you close your eyes for a moment? What can you see? Dark? Nothing? And that's all there was before God started creating things. So the first thing he did was he spoke and he said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And he divided the light from the dark. And the light he called day, and the dark he called night. And he called it the morning and the evening, the first day. When the Bible talks about days in this story, it's talking about stages. Because later on in the Bible it says that 1,000 years to the Lord is like a day. And a day is like 1,000 years. Time didn't mean anything to him. And then he decided to divide the sea from the sky, the firmament, the atmosphere. And then he said, "Let there be green things growing." So the forests began to grow. Wonderful trees and green things growing, beautiful. They had earth and they had light and they had water. And then he said, "Let's divide up the seasons. I'm going to put light in the sky for the daytime and for the night time." So again he spoke and the heavens came into being. Stars and the moon and the sun. And God saw that it was good and he was very pleased with it. And then he decided to create life in the oceans. We know that life began in the seas, so there were whales and fish and sea creatures, all sorts of sea creatures. And he said, "Let there be birds in the sky." Here they are, some birds flying. I don't know what they were. Beautiful, great big birds flying over the water. Now what's missing? I know what. It's animals, isn't it? And people. So he created animals and people. Let's have an elephant, shall we? Not very good at elephants, but never mind. There's his trunk. And lots of people. Give them some heads. And little insects and creepy crawlies. Difficult, it's flying in the sky there. And it was all beautiful. And he looked at it and he said, "Yes, that's very good. I'm really pleased with that." And then he decided to have a day off. And it's very good, isn't it, to have a day off? And he thought it would be a wonderful thing for everybody if we had one day off when we'd been creating things and doing work for 6 days. Now the first people that he created were these two here. I expect you may have heard of them. Adam and Eve. And they were going to be his special friends. And he walked with them and he talked with them every evening in the garden and he set them in the most beautiful place. We sometimes call it paradise, and it was called the Garden of Eden. Shall we read that together? The Garden of Eden. And it was full of the most beautiful things, trees and flowers and fruit and seed. And God said to them, "You can have any of this, eat whatever you like, everything is yours." But he said they've got one rule. I expect you have rules in schools, don't you? And he said just one thing is, in the middle of the garden is this special tree. And you're not to eat of that one, just that one. Don't eat that one. Otherwise, there'll be serious consequences because you will surely die. Well, it was wonderful for a while, but then Eve thought to herself, I'll just go and have a look at that tree. And when she looked at it, she thought, it looks pretty good to me. I wonder. And she had that little voice in her head which tries to tell us to do something wrong. The Bible calls it a serpent. And this voice in her head said, go on, you could try some. Nobody's looking. You won't really die. That's just rubbish. Don't believe that. So she reached out and she took the fruit and she smelt it. Oh, it smelled heavenly. And she took a little bite. Best thing she had ever tasted. So she took it to Adam. She said, look, Adam, I've just tasted it. It's fantastic. And nothing's happened to me. Look, I'm quite all right. You have some. So what should Adam have said? He should have said, no, God told us not to touch that tree. What have you done? But he didn't. He had a smell and he had a taste. It was amazing. But then he realised what he'd done. And they both felt sorry and ashamed, and they realised that they should never have touched it. They'd broken God's rule. Rules are there to keep us safe, aren't they? So they hid themselves in the garden, and that evening, when God came to walk with them, he couldn't see them anywhere. He called out, Adam, Eve, where are you? And they came out. And they couldn't look him in the eye. And he said, you've eaten from that tree, haven't you? He knew. He said, I'm sorry, but you can't stay in the garden anymore. You're going to have to leave. So it was very sad. So he made them some clothes. They got their heads hanging down because it was such a sad thing that happened. And they had to leave the garden. And go out into the world. And it was very sad. And what had been Shall we read that together? What had been just right was all spoiled. And after that there came death and disease and everything going wrong and all the things that, everything, let's see what it says here. Everything went all wrong. Everything went wrong. And it was such a shame. But they had a family. They had 2 lovely boys to start with. Cain and Abel. And as they grew up, they didn't like one another. I'm afraid I didn't like my baby sister when I was younger either. We're best of friends now, but when we were young, I really didn't like her. And it's horrid, isn't it, when you have that kind of feeling in families? But Cain was so angry with Abel that one day he took him out into the field and he attacked him and he killed him. It was terrible. He thought nobody would see. But God knew. And God came calling, Cain, where's Abel? But Cain said, how should I know? Am I my brother's keeper? And God said, I know what you've done. I'm shocked and horrified. From now on, you're going to have to leave this place and wander the world on your own. So Cain was turned out and had to go wandering on his own, and it was very sad. Everything had gone wrong. But God didn't leave it like that. He promised that one day he would send somebody who would make it all better again, restore that relationship that we had years ago when Adam and Eve were first made. And you and I know who that is, don't we? It was Jesus. And all the stories in the Bible look forward to Jesus coming. Very exciting. And this part of the Bible story we call, let's see, creation. And the sad bit where it all went wrong we call the fall. Let's do a couple of actions to remind us for that, shall we? Let's do the earth for creation. Yes? You do it with me. Creation. And then the fall, bring your hands down. creation and fall. And next time we do a story, we might add another action on so that you get a whole long list of them. And now I'd like to say a prayer for you. You don't have to join in with it if you don't want to. If you would like to, then just say a quiet Amen at the end. Dear God, thank you so much for your wonderful world and how good it was, how good it still is. Please help us to choose to do the things that are right and good and honest and true. Help us to take care of one another and of your world. And we ask this in your name. Amen.